What's going on, everyone? So ESPN, Kevin Pelton, dived into his 3 teams likely to improve. And he has the Detroit Pistons, the Memphis Grizzlies, and the San Antonio Spurs. Now, one, in my opinion, is incredibly obvious. That's the Grizzlies. Spurs, I do think, have a real chance to make some real strides. Pistons, they were supposed to be good last year, and they weren't. But let's dive into this a little further. And, of course, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions, so let me know down in the comments below. But getting into it, Memphis Grizzlies. Start with the obvious one. Now, look, Memphis was, a top 2 to 3 seed in the Western Conference, basically year in and year out. They look like a team that, was kind of the right stretch from being in a conference finals or NBA finals. Obviously, the last time they were in the playoffs, they lost to the Lakers. And then Ja Morant just couldn't get out of his own way. And hopefully he can. Last year, they were abysmal, again, because Ja couldn't get out of his own way. He comes back. He has to basically go from 0 to 100, because you got to remember, you got to keep in mind, that Ja, part of his suspension was that he could not work out. He could not go to the facility. Now, was he doing his own independent workout, stuff like that? Sure. It's not the same thing as actually being able to train and work out at the actual Grizzly facility. So he hopefully has been able to kind of get back in the lab, get back in the gym, and hopefully will have a much healthier season. The addition of Zach Edey, I think, is huge for this team, because he's one of the guys that can immediately come in and have an impact. Now, I do think Zach Edey is closer to his ceiling than he is his floor. Now, that doesn't mean that he won't be this great player in the league, but I do think this season, right out the gate as a rookie, 1, he probably wins Rookie of the Year. 2, I think he's like right now probably be a 15-10 guy, right? With his size, his versatility, he's even shown a little bit the ability to stretch the floor. We'll see how much Memphis actually expands on that. Slotting him alongside Triple J could potentially cause some mayhem on the defensive side of things, particularly on the interior. They'll have Ja Morant. They did just waive Derrick Rose, but that makes sense given all the guards that they have. Also, having Marcus Smart. It's going to be interesting to see, are they going to kind of go small out on the perimeter? Right? Is that Memphis's plan? Are they going to go with like Ja, Baines, and go with Baines and then a Marcus Smart out on the perimeter? Like, is that their plan? Is that how they're going to kind of line this up with Triple J and Zach Edey, maybe, to have some size at least down on the interior? I'm curious to see how they kind of go and approach their starting 5. Do they go with something where, maybe Brandon Clark is out on the perimeter? They definitely have some questions and kind of try to figure out the rotation lineup. Do they go extra small, like Triple J at the 5, like Clark at the 4? It's gonna be quite the interesting task that they have to kind of figure out how the starting 5 goes. But yeah, Memphis should be a good team going into this season. I will say, though, I wouldn't be shocked if they're like fighting for a play-in, right? Because like obviously they come down to Ja and how great he is, but I don't know, like the Western Conference is just so tough. It's just so stacked. And I think it really boils down to how much of an impact does Zach Edey have immediately out the gate. Can Ja kind of get back into the rhythm and flow of things? I know he looked good coming out of the suspension, but again, he got injured, so can he kind of keep his legs under him? Time will tell. But next up, the Detroit Pistons. Now, the Detroit Pistons, again, last year, they were actively like trying to compete. The expectations were that they were supposed to be a good team last year, and they were atrocious. Like, they were awful. Like, you were better off playing against G League teams than you were playing against Detroit, which was odd because they do have some time. I mean, obviously, Cade Cunningham is a solid player, right? He's still, he has his moments where he looks like he could be a superstar, and then he has like these other moments where he just kind of disappears. I'd kind of like to see him really start taking some strides, but he's an excellent player. They did pick up Malik Beasley, which, the problem with him is that he can be hot and cold, but having that 3-point shooting could go a long way. Tim Hardaway Jr. on the team for a full season could make some sense. Tobias Harris was like their big acquisition. Sure. I just, could they win some games? Sure. But I still think Detroit's probably going to be abysmal. again, maybe Cade Cunningham takes some strides. If Jalen Duren can stay healthy and kind of continue his monster run that he had in early parts of last season. Jaden Ivey, there are reports that the Pistons aren't super sold on Ivey as being a key piece of the future, so they may look to trade him at some point. If he can maybe take some strides, maybe that could be different. It's just, again, it's like, who on this roster really stands out to you? Asar Thompson is great. I really like him, but not as a star. I like him as that dirty work, do everything role player. Right? Him as a guy that's just rebounding, defending, kind of being that Swiss Army knife, do a little bit of everything type guy, a Draymond Green type player. Not saying that he will be Draymond, particularly on the defensive side, but just, that guy that he can make some plays, rebound, he can defend multiple positions, he just works hard, he's just kind of the glue to your team, right? But outside of that, it's just Cade Cunningham, sure, he's great, but not really special in my opinion, or at least hasn't shown that yet. Can he get there? Sure, right? He's still very young. He's only, 22? So there's still a lot of room for growth and potential there, but he can be very disappointing at times. It's just he has games and moments where he looks like he might be the next big thing in the league, and then he just will follow that up with just a disappointing dud, right? So we'll see. They have some pieces that have potential, but we feel like we're saying that every year. Detroit has potential. And then let's get into the San Antonio Spurs. Now, they're the team that I do think really could make some significant strides. Now, the problem that they have is they are in the Western Conference, right? And the Western Conference is just insane. If they were in the Eastern Conference, I would actually think that they have potential to be a lock for a playoff team. But in the Western Conference, it's going to be brutal. Right? Now, I do think that this team has a chance to really fight for a play-in spot. I do think that this team really has a chance to, at least bare minimum get in the play-in. A couple games or a game goes their way. They're in the playoffs, right? But no one's really expecting them to really take strides in the sense of being a contender this year. Victor Wembanyama is unbelievable. Guy is just unfair, walking cheat code. He's going into his second year. He's coming off of a lot of experience with the Olympics, right? Going on a deep Olympic run. So I do think he's just going to have the natural strides and progression. I think he's just going to have the natural growth that you see from just stars like himself going into the next year. And then especially coming off of a really good Olympic campaign. The best thing that San Antonio could have done this offseason outside of getting Jokic or something like that was bringing in Chris Paul. And it's not so much that Chris Paul is prime Chris Paul and he's out here and he's just going to, him and Wemby are going to lead this team to a championship. No, it's what he's capable of doing and the track record he has with development, right? In many ways, this is a development year for the Spurs, but I do think that this is a team that really could make some strides. They won 22 games last year. I could see them at least doubling that. I could see them at least getting to, 40, 44 games this season. And, Chris Paul's track record as far as win percentages go and the increase that he has on teams when he goes to a team, I think is huge. Harrison Barnes, I think, is the perfect bet, 3-and-D wing for this team. He's a guy that's going to come in. He's going to help grow, help develop. He's a guy that's been there, done that championship-wise, and was a big part of that Warriors team. And he's also a guy that doesn't take away from everyone else, right? He's not a guy that's going to come in and take away from Victor Wembanyama, where, Harrison Barnes needs 15 shot attempts and, needs the ball in his hands. No, he plays that role of that 3-and-D guy. Excellent. Is he a guy that can, get hot and put the ball on the deck and score and get to the basket and knock down the mid-range? Sure. But, he's a guy that can play within the offense and is a real Spurs guy, right? Comes from Steve Kerr, so he has familiarity with the style of offense and all that stuff. We'll see what kind of strides Devin Vassell can take. Can Vassell kind of move into that 23 range, 22 to maybe 25 range, right? He was just shy of 20 a game last season. Right? So can he move into that, start moving in and taking that step into that 20-plus a game night guy? Keldon Johnson had a full body transformation, working on his explosiveness, all that stuff. And then Stephon Castle, being that kind of Swiss Army knife guy. It'll be very interesting to see what he does his rookie season, what he does his rookie year. And then there's just expectations for even several other guys on this roster that, we'll see if guys can kind of take the strides. Obviously, Jeremy Sohan, we'll see how that plays out and how that goes. But, at the end of the day, it all boils down to Victor. It all boils down to Victor Wembanyama and what he's able to do and the impact he's able to have. Right? I think that there was a genuine argument last season that he was a top 15 player. And I think if he can move from top 15 to maybe top 10, I think that maybe they could take some real strides. That could be very interesting. But, again, time will tell. It's just patience with the Spurs. All right, they are on the right track. They have the pieces and the tools necessary to be that perennial contender year in and year out, maybe even squeeze out several championships. But they just got to play their cards right and remain patient. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the projections for these guys? What are your thoughts on, obviously Detroit, the Grizzlies, and the Spurs? I think the Grizzlies is kind of the easy one, right? I think that was kind of I get that they were abysmal last year, and so it's easy to just go, they're going to be good this year, right? They can't be worse than they were last year. But I think that was kind of the easy way out. I would have rather seen ESPN kind of predict, teams like Detroit and the Spurs. Cool. What's another one? Now, is there another kind of what people think is going to be sort of more towards the bottom? Does Houston take some strides this year? Does, the Jazz, is there somebody that's low key rather than the easy one, in my opinion, right? Do the Hornets all of a sudden become kind of good? I would have preferred that. But again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.